Hey programmers, what is going on? It is time for episode 40. In this episode, I'm going to go to some user comments to drive what we do here. So I have two comments that I'm going to respond to. The first comment is from, I believe, Kieran Woods. Who says, another great video, been following on the MVC series, found it very useful, thank you. Would you be able to make a video around the email confirmation on user sign up? Yeah, let's do that. That's going to be episode 40. But I'm going to combine it with one other way of doing things. And this comes from the user, I don't know if it's uswin30 or uswin30 or sorry if I got it wrong. I'm gonna call you Uswin. We're gonna go with that. Says, I appreciate that you kept it very real and relatable all the way down to when there was an error and you showed how to solve it. Thank you for keeping it honest and thorough. So that's really cool. So that is going to drive how I do this particular video. So what we're going to do is we're going to add an email confirmation to our application here on sign up, and you all know how that works, right? You sign up for a site, it sends you an email, and then you have to click a link in your email to kind of verify your account so that the website knows that that is your real email and you're not just making up some phony address. So we're going to do that, and the unique thing that we're going to do is I'm going to wing this one. I am not preparing beforehand at all. I'm going to try minimal edits other than just kind of cutting out space where I stop and think about things, but I will not edit out any research. I will not edit out any Googling, which I'm sure we're going to do. The only thing that I did beforehand is I did look at a NuGet package called Fluent Email. So we're going to use that because it does some really cool stuff. And I just happened to be looking at it for something else the other day, and I was like, wow, that'll fit right in with the YouTube thing. So I haven't used it before, so we're bound to run into some things. We're going to have to pick an email provider that works with Fluent Email, sorry. And yeah, let's do that. So here goes nothing. I hope this is really cool that you can follow along with the thought process and we get to an end solution together. So without further delay, all right, so let's just jump right into things. I'm gonna, from scratch here, even open up all my projects and set everything up as I go. So first thing I'm gonna do, some of these windows are popping up on my other monitor. So I just have to kind of drag them in place here. So first thing I want to do is go into my projects folder and create a new folder for episode 40. And then inside there, I want to copy the structure that I've used for other things. Not the Wordle-ish. 24 sounds good. Yeah, this is the structure that I'm talking about. So let me dock this thing over here, and we're going to close Discord. And let me open up another file explorer on this side, if it lets me. There we go. And let's go back to our projects, episode 40. So I'm going to duplicate this structure. So I'm just going to copy the name. We'll right click new folder and paste the name in there. And then inside that folder, I have two folders. So let's create those. One for API, one for UI. All right. And now I got to clone into those. So I'm going to use my Git extensions. And before I do that, let's bring in a browser. And let's go to github.com/noble cause code. And first I will grab the API and I will start clone. There's my API. I'm going to put that code in that project folder I just made under API. Select folder, blah, 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 blah. Let me load my SSH key and clone. Cool, no, don't switch in yet because I got one more to do. So then let's go to our UI project and copy that guy, and we'll clone the UI into the same place but under the UI, and I think there's an MVC folder in here that we'll put it in. Awesome. So if we look at our folder now, we don't need that one anymore. So if we look at our folder now, in my UI, I've got MVC, and there's my UI project. And then inside my API, I've got my API project. Now, I don't know if I actually even have SQL Server installed here. So I'm just looking on my system for services. Okay, hold on. There we go. Let me see if I even have SQL. I got a new laptop here, so I don't remember if I put it in. I did put it in. It's just not running, so let's start it. Cool. All right, so there are videos on how to set all that stuff up on this channel in the beginner series if you need that, but let's go and, well, first let's start that SQL Server Studio. That's starting on my other monitor too. Let's see, is that the one? That is the one, and I have my database. Cool. Let's open up our project. So we're going to open a project or solution. I'm going to go to my project 40. We'll do the API first. And then I'm going to open another instance. And also in episode 40, we're going to go UI MVC and open the MVC. Okay, cool. So we have our API here. Let's run that, see if we get any errors. We do not. And then let's run the front end UI. All right. So we log in and we get a 500 on a call to 44328. That makes sense that that's failing because, let's see, where am I? 44328. Oh. User management repository. So, new computer, new problems. So, it was a post to API token that is failing. So, let's go into the API. And we're going to put a breakpoint in the repository. For getting a token, which is probably could be a connection string problem. Let me look at that. that's not the, we want the development version. Localhost, Savage Cell, Trusted Connection. That sounds promising. So let's try and log in again here. So can we connect? We're sending the email. The results, looks like it came back with a user, so we're good there. User does not equal null, so we verify the password. So I got the password wrong in there. And it's just throwing a 500 right now. I don't know what the password was. I'm going to try password 123. Hey, that got me in. Tough password. And it looks like my images are also broken here. So we should probably fix that as well. So first thing I want to do is open up my Chrome tools here, my debug. That window is way too big. And I want to look at one of those images. Is going to well, here, let's go back. Let's right click this this picture and go to inspect. So I don't know why it's assets and 2 slashes. That looks like a bug. Let's see if there's a laptop1.jpg under assets images anyway. So if we just go here, instead of /products, assets images laptop.jpg. Was it laptop 1? Oh, let me see. Yeah, laptop 1. So that can't be found. Let's try just images. That can't be found. So let's go in our project and look at where our pictures are. So www.root, assets, images. So there is no laptop 1. There is a laptop though. Let's see if we can hit that under I would think that would work. So www assets images laptop .png. I think I have JPG here. There we go. So it looks like the picture is wrong. So maybe in the database, let's check the items. Just select them all and let's see what is in there. So images has /assets/images. Yeah, they're the wrong. So let's do an edit top 200 rows, and I'll just double click on this little divider, and we'll go into laptop. We'll make it .png. I don't know why we're getting double slashes, but let's check some of the other names in there. It looks like nothing's got a number and they're all PNGs. So let's go back to SQL and change all these. And so football. Oh, they are PNGs already. So let's see what that does. If we go back to our products and refresh the page, still nothing. Well, let's see. So it's assets images laptop.png. So I think that double slash, something's putting assets slash in front of that. So let's look at that. So in the view, under product index, let's see where those images are. See, we have assets slash. And what we're getting in here is assets slash slash. So I think the best way to do this is to get rid of the assets, the slash assets in the database. So, because we don't, let's see. I'm just thinking this has assets and then a slash, so we just need images, not, yeah. So we'll get rid of, and this is just kind of cleaning up data for a new computer. All right, now let's try, there we go. All right, so let's go to, I forget what the path is. It's been a while since I even looked at this project. So let's look at how we sign up. So there's a user management controller, and we have a sign up. And so looks like it's going to be user management slash sign up. Okay, so let's go to slash user management slash sign up. Okay, and here's our sign up form. So what we want is we want to be able to fill out this form and hit sign up. And my display is really small, and I did not design this responsibly, so you'll have to forgive the footer is not sticky at the bottom, and not really a design course here. So, but in the interest of keeping it short, let's say that once I click sign up, let's take a look at what happens. This is the UI. So the post from that form will come back into this sign up post. And all of this is covered in videos. We've already written all this code in actual episodes. So feel free to go back and review that stuff. And so we call user management sign up, and then we're redirecting to a confirmation reminder. So if we look at our confirmation reminder, this is the page where we want to tell people, hey, we've sent you an email. Go ahead and check it and click the link to verify your email address. So let's go to the confirmation reminder page here. And in the view under user management, here's the confirmation reminder. And I'm not going to really make this very fancy, but we'll just say an email was sent to your let's say a verification email was sent to the address you provided. Check your email and click the link. And, you know, normally we would have another, you know, like after this, you could say, you know, like didn't receive the email and click here. And that would just call, the same thing that's going to generate the email that we're going to do. So I don't have that yet. So we'll come back and do this later, or I can leave that for you to do on your own after we figure out how to do all this stuff. So if I save that, that is kind of what our page is like here. And the first time, there we go. All right. So not very fancy. Yes, I could use some styling on that, and normally I would, but we're just going to keep it simple here. So the real question here is, after you click sign up and you click sign up post, but between the call to sign up and the confirmation, the redirect to that confirmation page, somewhere inside this user management service, we want to do more than what we're doing now. So let's go into the services and look at our user management service and what sign up actually does today. But I think there's a view full Shift Alt Enter. Okay, so that might make things a little bit easier for us to see here. So inside sign up, let's make it a little bit smaller too. Hopefully this won't affect things too much. Go a little bit smaller. So all that sign up's doing right now is taking the information that you send, and one of those pieces is the email. So it takes the sign up form data and passes it in here, goes into the repository for sign up. And I'm going to hit Control T and look at the user management repository. So if we look at what sign-up's actually doing in here, it's just creating a sign-up object, and it's calling API users with a post. So I think as far as the front end goes, we probably should follow this through, and then inside the API on the back end, that's where we can send the email, because we don't really want to send the email from web code. I would rather send that from the back end, and the back end is what's adding the user to the database and everything. So it seems appropriate that it would send out emails as well. So it looks like most of the work is going to happen inside this API users post. So let's get out a full screen on this guy and go into the API. And I'm going to hit stop to give us a little more room here. Let's unpin. And I'm going to make this 140% as well. It's a little bit smaller. And let's look at what happens in this user repository. So if we look at the user service, we'll be able to see that there's an insert user async, and so that's going to be what gets called by by the controller, just because it kind of makes sense that the user here's the post, right, and it gets that user sign up object with all the data, the email, and all that stuff. The user sign up object just has all those properties we passed in, right? And then it calls the service and calls insert user async. Here's the service. The insert user async encrypts the password because you're signing up, so we don't want to store an unencrypted password. And then we overwrite the password in the user object that's passed in with the encrypted version, and then we insert it in the repository class. And so that insert just connects to SQL, and that's all it does. It just creates that row. So what we really want here is in the user service, we want to create this user, and let's look at that repository again. So one thing we don't have here that we're going to have to modify. I'm inserting a user, but I'm not getting back the new user ID. So I don't have a way to know for every user that we put in our users table here. If I select them, you can see each one has a unique user ID. So what I basically want to do is I want to modify this. Oh, I don't have to modify it. We already have an is confirmed. So this is the flag that the email is gonna change. So when we add a new user, we'll get another row here. Is confirmed is going to default to 0, which means they're not confirmed, but they will be active. And when they click the link in their email, it will call back and it will change this to confirmed. And that's how we'll know to let the user in or not. So like I said, the insert that we're using is a stored procedure, and it is users insert. So let's take a look at that. And you can see here that we're not returning anything. We're just doing an insert into users. And so I think what we need to do is we need to add another output parameter, and we'll call it, I guess, user ID. And the user ID is going to be of type. I can look in the users table at the columns. The user ID is an int right there. So the user ID is going to hold an int, and it's going to be an out parameter. I think that's how you do it. It's been a while since I've been messing around in SQL Server, funny enough. So let's say SQL Server output params, just to double check myself. Just taking the very first thing. Oh, it's the word output. Okay, I was close. So output. And then after here, after we do our insert, I want to read that user ID, and there's an at I think it's identity is going to be the last, but I think there's something called scoped identity. Let's see. At identity. Let's look in the docs here. At identity. At identity. Scope identity. I think that's the one I really want. So they all turn. So you can see they all return the last value inserted into the identity column of a table. Identity and scope identity return the last value generated in the current session, but scope identity returns the value only within the current scope, meaning this transaction, this code right here. So I want to make sure I get the last identity that was put in, but I want my identity that was just put in within the scope of this function. So usually at identity works just fine, but I think, is it scope? Let's look up scope identity. So let's look at the syntax. Oh, it's a method. Cool. So we're going to call this method, and we're going to say set at, or we're going to say we're going to select at user ID is equal to scope identity. So let's check that, and I'm going to execute that code. And so now when we insert, we're going to get a user ID back as an output parameter. And so we have to go and code here, and we have to add an output parameter to our call, parameters.add, and it's going to be at user ID. And if we look, there is a DB type and a parameter direction. So the let's see. Oops. I don't know why. Why can't I? Huh. I can't seem to navigate this list while I'm recording this video. I don't know why. Let's try. All right, so string name, object value. I don't think we need. So I'm going to say null for now. We'll check that in a minute. DB type is a int, right? That was the int 32. The direction is a parameter direction dot output, and then a semicolon. This is really big. Okay, I hope you can still see that. I think you can. I think we are using Dapper. We are. Okay, so let's make sure with Dapper that I'm using the output parameter correctly. So Dapper output parameter using Dapper. All right, so it looks like he's got a new ID. He's setting new ID equal to scope identity. So we selected ours. Maybe we should set ours. We'll see if that doesn't work. And it's called new ID. So it looks like the direction there is a return value. So maybe we should change that. Let's change that. Instead of output, we're going to call it a return value. And I think he's using return value because is he? No, he's not returning it. So what is he saying? Just searching the test CS file, you could find this example. So your C# code would look like this. Oh, he did have it as output. And new ID. And then looks like we're gonna have to do a query now instead of an execute and pass that return variable so we can do the get. So let's keep this up for now. I'm gonna go back to output because we were right the first time. What I don't know is this value. So it looks like he's using named params here, which we can do also. So the DB type, I can just do that. I can get rid of this one. And then I can do direction for the other one. And so now that looks like that. And so execute doesn't return anything other than the number of rows affected. That's the int that, I don't know if you can see that comment here. So I need to not do execute async. I need to do query async. And query async will return a value. So I'm going to say result. on mine. And then so we got our parameters, and then we're passing the stored procedure. So it looks like his parameters are called P, so that's my parameters, and then I can just do a get int with the name of the variable. So that sounds like fun to me. You know what? I don't actually need this result, so I'm going to get rid of the result. I wonder if parameter. We'll try going back to execute query here, to execute async, because maybe it'll still populate the params. But for now, with a test, I'm just going to test it this way. So I want to be able to say var user ID. This is the new user we're adding, is equal to parameters.get. I'm going to get an int out of those parameters, and the name is at user ID. That's the name I gave it right here. And cool. So now insert user async. I think what we can do is we can return our int, our user ID, right? And so now I'm just going to leave it in a variable for now, just so we can debug it and make sure it's in there. But we're going to return this user ID. And so the other thing is we're going to have to go into the interface and change our task to a task of int, because this guy's going to be complaining up here. And so we're going to change that to return an int. So now when get user by email sync is called from the service, right, it's, wait a minute. Get user by email async. Oh, okay. So I'm in the wrong place. How did I get in here? What did I just change? Insert user. So where's insert user? Oh, I didn't go down far enough. Okay, so here's my task. I'm returning a user ID. So insert users async in this service right here. Right now it doesn't do anything, but I can say var user ID is equal to, and I should have my user ID here. And the idea here is that I can now send an email to this user. And I'm thinking that we might want to modify this some more. Let's see. We're going to need in our users table here. Let's look at our users table again. So I think we're missing a column, not just is confirmed, but we need a confirmation code so that we can know that the user clicked on the email. We need some random code to match up. So I'm going to go into my users table design, and I'm going to add a we'll call it verification data. It'll be a varchar 50 is fine. Will we allow nulls? Sure, we can allow nulls. And let's save that. So if if I look at our users table now, at the very end, we've got a new column called verification data. So maybe when we add the new user, we can make up a random string. No. You know what? Let's leave our create to just be a create. We'll go back in and update the row. I think I like that better. So we'll get back our user ID, and then what we'll do is we will create a validation data, and then we will update the database with this validation data. And that validation data is just a like random string, right? I'm just going to use a GUID because they're hard to guess. You can use whatever you want, and we'll just tack that onto the link. So create validation data, update the database with validation data, and then we are going to send the email with a link to a page that accepts the validation data. Okay, those are the three things we're going to do here. So first, creating the validation data is easy, right? I can say var validation data is equal to GUID dot, come on. Oh, I guess I don't have system here. If I hit Alt Enter, I can add the using system. So GUID dot new GUID. So there's my validation data. It's just some random GUID. And now we want to call await users repository dot update user let's make a specific call for this. Update user validation data. And we will pass the validation data. So really we don't need this variable for here, but we will need it to send to the link, so it kind of makes sense to put it in its own data. And now, so we don't have this method to update user validation data, so I'm going to Alt Enter, and I'm going to generate, no, I'm not going to generate, let's undo that. And did it make it? Where did it put that? Oh, good. It added it to the user repository. That's what I wanted. Okay, so we're going to update the user validation data in the repository. So that just, what I did there was if you hit Alt Enter on something like that, the menu that pops up will it'll ask you, do you want to generate this method in the interface for users repository? And so if we go into the user repository now, because it's in the interface implementation here, if I just Alt Enter that one, I can implement the interface, and that will create the method I need right here. Okay, so we got this method that's going to basically go into the database and just insert our verification data for that row. So we need to know which row. So I need the user ID in here. So I don't have that. So let's add a parameter here that is an int user ID, and then the validation data GUID that we're passing in. So first thing I got to do is change that interface to add this. So let's go back into that user repository interface and add the int user ID into there. And then in the service, we need to pass that user ID and the validation data into that method call. And so let's make this async. Oops. And now we basically just want to call an update on the database. Let's see what we have here. I have a query async. I have a query async that's a get. I don't really have a an update, but an update is kind of like an insert. So I'm just going to copy this whole try catch. I'm going to paste it into here. And all I really need here is I need to pass in the user ID, and I need to pass in the validation data, which we're calling in the database verification data. So we're going to call it verification data here. Let's actually go and rename that. I'm going to do Control RR. This box covers it up, but that's what it did. And we're going to call it verification data. And I'm going to just go back through the interface and the service. I'm going to rename that one verification data. So it renamed it there. Cool. So all I really have are these two pieces of information, user ID and verification data. So I can get rid of these other parameters, including the output parameter. I don't need that. And I just want to pass the value of the user ID and the value of the verification data. All right. What are you complaining about? Cannot use local variable before it's declared. It is not. Oh, because I'm using user ID down here. I don't need that anymore. So, all right, good. So now I definitely can do an execute async on Dapper, and we're going to call this users update verification. So we need to create that stored procedure and have it take this and insert it for this user ID. Cool? Cool. So let's go in here. I'm going to right click and do new stored procedure. We have two parameters. So if you want, when you see this, a lot of people don't know this, right? You could just highlight and delete all this stuff. Or you can actually read what this says up here and hit Control-Shift-M. And if you do that, you get this cool little dialog where you can put the author's name and the date that you created this, which for this video is 6/29/2022. You can give it a description, which I'm not going to do. The stored procedure is going to be called, we said, users update verification. So I'm going to give it that name, right? And then for parameters, I have an at, parameter 1, you need the name here. So at user ID, the data type is an int. The default value, we're not even going to have a default value. And the second parameter that we're passing in is called verification data. So we'll put that. It is a string, and it does not have a default value. And if we hit OK now, we can get rid of this comment, and we can get rid of this ANSI stuff here. And so it's close, right? I don't need the equals. This is actually not. This is actually a varchar 50, and I liked these to be capitalized. We don't need the. All right, and then we can write our stored procedure, which is going to be update users set verificate. Nope. Let's double check our column here. We have to see the column isn't listed here. It's because we haven't refreshed this since we added that. So now if we refresh, there it is, verification data. So I do need this, but what I want to say is set the column verification data equal to verification data. And so that's going to be users dot verification data. Invalid column name. Really? Why isn't it there? So it's fine. It just hasn't updated its cache yet. There's probably some way to force it to do that. I don't know how to get it to do that. But you can see when I run the check, it says that it would run fine, even though the UI is giving me a red squiggly. So we don't want to set that for everyone. So we want to update that where users dot user ID is equal to the passed in user ID. Right, so update this table, set the verification data where user ID equals user ID. And normally you would come in here and you would first check that these two have a value before you do this. So you could say, you know, make sure it exists first, because this will blow up if there is no, well, no, it won't. It just won't find a match. But depending on your database schema, you could have problems. But this should be fine. So let's execute that, and we can even test this. Like if we do a new query, and we look at our, let's look at, here's this test user, which is user ID 8. So you can see that there's a null in there, right? Even if I re-execute this, even if I re-execute this row, the ID 8 has no verification data. So we can test this by saying user ID 8, and we're going to pass it the string, I don't know, test. And so if we execute that, it says it worked. We come back here, it's still null, but if we execute again just to do this select, now you can see test is in there. So that's good. The only thing we probably don't want to do is overwrite that value, but I guess we're okay with that. We're only doing it when we're inserting a new row, so for this application, I think we're okay. So we're going to have a GUID in here, and so we have to go back. This verification data is expecting a string, so we're just going to do a toString on that, just to make sure that it doesn't send the GUID object in there. It sends the string representation. Okay, so we are good with that. If we go back to our service here, so now we're able to store our data and our GUID. So now we need to send an email. Okay, this is just a little in-between wrap-up here in case the episodes get too long. I'm going to put this kind of generic ender here. We're going to continue with our email verification. You're going to see everything that I do from beginning to end pretty much without editing. The only editing is going to be for me going up, right? Because you don't need to hear that. Maybe adding some sound effects in to make it fun, and that's kind of it. So it's going to be a longer format because I'm showing you the whole thing from end to end. So I hope you see that no matter how senior you get, you still Google things, you still question things, you still make mistakes as you code, and you go back and fix them, and we just have that iteration. So that's it for this episode. The next one should be released within days, if not already. So we'll see you next time in the next episode online.